everyone, and for today we are going to present our research entitled Gender and Friendship Norms of Generation Y and Generation Z. The researchers, yours truly, Bautista Abby Grace, Goliado Jessica, Golingo Aiza, Madriaga Karen Joy, Pascua Daniel, Sabado Jonard, and Tihada Crisanta. Now let's move on to Chapter 1. Introduction. Every society has its own rules, traditions, and beliefs, which is practiced by most members of the community and called as social norms. These social norms influence the interactions happen in relationships like friendships based on gender, interests, and generation. According to Conchi from last 2021, a social norm is a way of thinking, feeling, or behaving that is deemed by the group as appropriate. These norms inform group members how to behave in a given situation, how to feel about it, how to behave on it, and how to behave on it. It exerts social influence on the group members by prescribing which reactions are appropriate and which are not, by Cameron last 2019. As defined by Harlan last 2020, friendship norms refers to implicit understanding on how two people engage and behave with each other. Friendship norms include the frequency of content of communication, type of communication, and shared activities. Social norms intend its influence on gender and friendship, and it refers on how an individual should treat each other as friends and function in the society based on their genders. May I call on Ma'am Aiza for the research questions?
Now let's move on to the research question. This study aims to determine the gender and friendship norms among Generation Y and Generation Z. This study sought to answer the following specific questions. Number 1. What are the gender and friendship norms of Generation Y? What are the gender and friendship norms of Generation Z? Is there a significant difference in the gender and friendship norms of Generation Y and Generation Z?
Thank you, Ma'am Aiza. To the literature's view. According to Argel and Henderson, last 1984, number of rules or social norms characterize friendships like a friend should give a confidence. Friends should stand up for one another. Findings also suggested that such rules were broken. Friendships suffered and sometimes were terminated. Friendship often differs for men and women. Women place higher value on their relationship and their connectedness to each other than do men. Men and women's notion of interdependence also contrast, such that women place greater stress on the relation aspects of interdependence, based on Gabriel and Gardinas, last 1999. Sorry for excuse me. According to Baumgartner last 2009, women's friendships are characterized by more intimacy, self-disclosure, and emotional support, whereas those of men's friendship tends to be more agentic and instrumental, focusing on shared activities such differences lead to the conclusion that women's friendship are face-to-face, while those men are side-by-side. Sorry. May May I call on Ma'am Jessica to read what's on the screen, please? Ma'am Jessica?
So, gender norm, which is defined by Ziegler last 2017 as social principles that govern the behavior of men and women in society and restrict their gender identity, what is considered as acceptable. Connell, last 2015, also mentioned that in the world of work, gender norm also exists. The research of Almazan the research of Almazan 2022 showed that women in society is being described as prostituted, suspiciously underprivileged, discrimination, while their abilities are described as offshoot, overshadowed, threats, stresses, skepticism, and coating.
Thank you, Ma'am Jessica. May I call on Sir Daniel Pasco, please?
According also to Jackson Lab 2013, traditionally many Western societies had believed that women are more nurturing than men. Therefore, the traditional view of the female gender norm describes that women should behave in ways that the nurturing. One way that a woman might be faced in the traditional female gender role would be to serve her family by working full-time in the house rather than taking employment outside at home. Men, on the other hand, are presumed by traditional views of gender norms to be leaders. The traditional view of the masculine gender suggests that men should be the heads of their household, providing financially for the family and making important family decisions. While this view remains dominant in many spheres of society, alternative perspective on traditional beliefs about gender roles have gained increasing support in the 21st century. Next slide. Moreover, Lockheed last 2017 found that even in the early 21st century, many corporations operate from a perspective that favors traditional beliefs about gender roles by, for example, offering parental leave benefits only a mother and denying such benefits to fathers. In addition, because traditional perspective towards gender remains predominant in many corporations, the position that women and men hold in corporations are often segregated by sex. Women are more likely to be expected to work as secretaries, and men are more likely to be expected to work as manager and executive. Also, men are usually more ambitious and task-oriented in the work, while women are usually more interested in and concerned about the relationship with others at work. One of the contributing factors of this norm is the age gap or the generation when someone was born. Probably, Generation Y and Generation Z are the current living people on Earth. As differentiated by Anorata last 2019, Generation Y refers to the generation of millennials born from 1981 to 1996, while Generation Z is the generation born from 1997 to 2012. In terms of the gender topics, Parker and Graff last 2019 found that Generation Z is the most accepting generation because they recognize more the existence of LGBTQ. Generation Y and Z are both largely influenced by technological innovations. However, their exposure to technology is different as Generation Y to witness the birth of technology while Generation Z witnessed the invasion of internet. It was also found out that Generation Z is most likely to socialize and express their views online with 59%, while Generation X and Z enjoy more to interact in person. In connection, this research aims to determine the difference of Generation Y and Generation Z in terms of friendship and gender norms. This aims is to provide information about how various generations interact, socialize, and read various genders.
Now let's move on to chapter 2. May I call on Mr. Tihada?
Good morning. Methodology. This chapter presents the methodology of the study. It includes the research design, the population, and local of the study. Data gathering tools, data gathering procedure, and also the statistical treatment of data. Next, ma'am.
So in this
Research design. This study Research design. This study used descriptive quantitative research method to determine the effects of these gender biases on the mental health of college's learner. The study is best for a quantitative method since the researchers focus on facts and results, emphasize objective measures, and gather data through questionnaire for statistical and numerical analysis, making the findings more persuasive and reliable.
So in this study, the researchers employed the descriptive approach, which entails gathering data in order to answer questions about the current state of study subject.
Next, population and rationale of the study. The respondents of the study are 15 individuals who were born from 1980s to 1995, and 15 individuals who were born from 1996 to 2012. The respondents are from the municipalities in 6 districts of Pangasinan, which were chosen through purposive random sampling. Sampling procedures. Purposive sampling is the method that the researchers use to guarantee a greater validity of data. Data gathering tools. Then the researchers administered survey questionnaires as the tools to generate data. The questionnaire was designed and formulated by the researchers, and it was validated by 3 professionals, namely Ms. Mildred T. Brutas, Ms. Amy Kate Bautista, and Mr. Arnold E. Idale. And it has validation result of 3.78, which is described as a highly valid. And the survey questionnaire was divided into 2 parts. First part includes the gender norms, and the second part encompasses the friendship norms of Generation Y, and Z. Lastly, the questionnaire was sent online through Google Forms.
May I call on Ma'am Aisa for the next slide, please? So, data gathering procedures. A letter was sent to Dr. Marilyn Kimming, Dean of College of Teacher Education, to ask permission to conduct the study. Afterwards, the researchers was obtained permission to conduct the study for the respondents. Then, the survey questionnaires was administered to the respondents for the data collection. The questionnaires was carefully discussed, reviewed, and analyzed by the group in order to determine the validity, acceptability, and comprehensiveness of the questionnaire. It was checked and validated by the researcher's advisor and preferred statistician and validators. Statistical treatment of data. To compute the data in the first and second problem, average weighted mean was utilized. I call on Mr. Daniel Pasqua.
And now we're going to proceed to the chapter 3, which is the result and discussion. These chapters present to analysis and interpretation of the data collected to determine the gender and friendship norms of Generation Y and Generation Z. Next slide. Okay. The table 1.1, the gender norm among Generation Y, shows that gender norms among Generation Y. The result reveals that respondents are just moderately agree that the said gender norms are still practiced with an average weighted mean of 3.32, which implies that respondents who were born from 1981 to 1997 are getting more accepting with the modern practice of the society and with the diverse beliefs of the people. It also means that Generation Y is recognizing more the rights of the every individual and their free will to live beyond the gender norms. Moreover, the result shows that respondents agree that most people on their generation expect women to have the same chance to work outside at home as men, as it garner the highest weighted mean of 3.07, which implies that Generation Y is now more open to the idea that women have the rights to work and be economically independent. It also means that workplaces are getting more exclusive in terms of job opportunities across gender. However, this should be improved. However, the result also shows that respondents agree that most people in Generation Y expect men make better political leaders than women, and most people in Generation Y expect men to have the final word about decision in the home with weighted means of 2.80 and 2.60 respectively. This implies that the gender norm, which treats men superior than other gender, is still felt today. This also means that Generation Y is still envision women as weaker in decision making, which is also important in leading, which was also perceived by the said generation on the based on the result. In a positive note, the result shows that Generation Y is just moderately agree that most people in their generation expect adolescent girls to get married before the age of 18 years with a weighted mean of 1.63, which implies that there are only respondents who still live with the idea that girls should be married in a young age. But these results can be considered as good results because they reverse. Most respondents from Generation Y have little respect to the choice of women and will get married based on their personal decision. Also, respondents are only moderately agree that most people in their generation expect girls to be sent to school only if are not needed at home with a weighted mean of 1.80, which implies that there are only few respondents are still with the norms that girls are intended to stay at home, and majority are now getting more open that women deserves the basic rights, which is to get educated.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel Pasqua. So now let's move on to the table 1. Why? The results shows that respondents agree that the friendship norms are still practiced by their generation, with an average weighted mean of 2.64, which implies the Generation Y still consider norms or rules that should be followed if you are in a friendship. However, the result review of the Generation Y strongly agree that defending friends against gossips as it garnered the highest weighted of 3.33, which implies that respondents believe that it is an obligation of a friend to defend his or her friend as it measures the authenticity of their friendship. Also, the table shows that respondents strongly agree that friends should keep confidential information that was trusted by a friend with a weighted mean of 3.27, which means that the respondents expect their friends to be trustworthy of every information, regardless if it is a good or bad about them. The result shows that the respondents agree that they are still consider someone as a friend even without for a long time with a weighted mean of 3.7, which implies that they do not consider distance and frequency of bonding as a basis of real friendship. However, it can be seen on the table that the respondents are just moderately agree with the norm that as friends, we should share confidential as it gathered the lowest weight of 2.07, which implies that respondents believe that even you are friends, you should not trust everything, especially confidential informations. Also, the table reveals that respondents are just moderately agree that they cancel plans just to commitment to their friends with a weighted mean of 2.20, which means that only few do these norms and majority still choose to go to their prior commitments. May I call on Ms. Jessica Poliado?
The table 2.1 shows the gender norms among Generation Z. The result shows that respondents moderately agree that gender norms still exist today with an average weighted mean of 2.10. This implies that there are few respondents who still norms, which results to gender bias. However, this could be positive view because it means majority is now moving forward to more equal society where rights in the basis of treatment and not the norms. Moreover, it is a positive result that the respondents agree that most people Generation Z expect women to have same chance to work outside the home as men, as it garnered the highest weighted mean of 2.93, which implies that respondents are giving fair treatment to all genders to be economically stable and maximize their potentials as productive employees. However, the result also known that the respondents agree that most people in my generation do not share household tasks equally with a weighted mean of 2.53, which means that there are still individuals who belong to Generation Z who are doing gender stereotyping wherein there are jobs assigned for men and jobs specially assigned for women. The table also reveals that respondents disagree that most people in Generation Z expect adolescent girls to get married before the age of 18 years with a weighted mean of 1.47, which implies that the Generation Z do not follow this gender norm and they now let women do their own decisions in starting a family life. Furthermore, the result also shows that respondents disagree that most people in their generation expect girls to be sent to school only if they are not needed at home, with a weighted mean of 1.47, which means that they respect the right girls to get educated and active their full potentials.
Thank you, Ms. Collado. Now may I call on Ma'am Isa for the table 2.2.
Table 2.2, the friendship norms among Generation Z. Shows that friendship norms among Generation Z. The result reveals that respondents agree that friendship norms in their generation are still practiced, as it garnered a weighted means of 2.59, which implies that friendship on their generation has still standard and norms which should be practiced by a friend. In addition, the respondents strongly agree that as a friend, they should keep a confidential information that was trusted to them by their friend, as it garnered the highest weighted mean of 3.47, which implies that a friend is expected to be trustworthy of a secret because of a real friend has a word of honor. It can be seen on the table, the respondents also strongly agree that they still practice the norms of defending their friends against gossips about him or her, and still considering someone as their friend, even without seeing each other for a long time, with a weighted means of 3.40, respectively. This implies that Generation Z believes that a friend should protect their friend from the various misconceptions and rumors against their friend, regardless if they see each other frequently or not. On the other hand, the respondents are just moderately agree that a friend is obligated to share their feelings to their friends with a weighted means of 1.73, which implies that a few of Generation Z follow these norms because this generation recognizes more that people has the right to whether share their feelings or not. Moreover, they are also moderately agree that kissing a friend on cheeks as a form of my affection is still a friendship norms of Generation Z, with a weighted means of 1.73, which implies that the said generation is not getting more touchy and they are getting more shy to kiss their friend.
Thank you, Ma'am Isa. Let's move forward to table 3. The significant difference of the generation and friendship norms of Generation Y and Generation Z. So the table shows the presented numerically speaking and calculated mean for each group varies. The main source of the mean score of Generation Y fell into descriptive equivalence of moderately agree, with an average weighted mean of 2.43, while the Generation Z mean score fell also with moderately agree, with an average weighted mean 2.38. The table shows that the generation and friendship norms of Generation Y and Generation Z has no significance as perceived by the respondents. The correlation is not significant with a computed p-value of 0.685 is greater than the critical value of 0.05. Therefore, the researchers accept the null hypothesis. Meanwhile, the result implies that the gender and friendship norms of Generation Y and Generation Z has no significant difference and almost close to each other. This may also mean that both generations share the same beliefs, perceptions, and rules on how to treat genders and to be in a friendship. May I call on Mr. Tejada?
Let's move on to chapter 4. Next slide, ma'am. Conclusion. In light of foregoing findings, conclusions were drawn. Generation Y moderately agrees that gender norms are still practiced. Generation Y expect women to have the same chance to work outside the home as men. Expect men make better political leaders than women. And then women and generation expect men to have the final word about decision in the home. Generation Y agree that friendship norms are still practiced. Generation Z moderately agrees that gender norms are still practiced in terms of gender norms. Generation Z expect women to have the same chance to work outside the home as men. Do not share household tasks equally. Expect family to control their daughter behavior more than their son's behavior. Generation Y agrees that friendship norms are still practiced. And the gender friendship norms of Generation Y and Generation Z has no significant difference as perceived by the respondents.
May I call on Ma'am Aiza for the recommendations?
Now let's move on to the recommendation. Number 1, Generation Y should improve their gender awareness and remove their gender stereotyping, specifically in terms of decision making in political views. Number 2, Generation Y should maintain defending their friends against gossips about him or her, keeping confidential information that was trusted to me by my friend, and considering someone as their friend even without seeing each other for a long time. Number 3, Generation Z, moderates should maintain giving the same chance to women to work outside the home. They have to improve distribution of household tasks equally and learn to control their children's behavior regardless of their gender. Number 4, Generation Y should maintain keeping confidential information that was trusted to by a friend, defending by their friends against gossip about him or her, and considering someone as a friend even without seeing each other for a long time.
So this is the end of our presentation. Before we finally end, may I ask all of the researchers to please open up their camera. And let's introduce ourselves one by one. So thank you again. God bless. I'm the first researcher, Bautista Amy Grace.
I'm Collado Jessica.
I'm Golingo Aiza. I'm Karen J.C. Madriaga.
And I am Daniel Pasqua. I'm Shabala Jonard.
And I'm Tejada Crisanto.
Thank you and God bless.